hinges creak in doorless chambers, and strange and frightening sounds echo through the halls. Whenever candlelights flicker, where the air is deathly still, that is the time when ghosts are present, practicing their terror with ghoulish delight. There's no turning back now.
Just after sundown, when darkness creeps over the land, the dark figures lurk in the shadows. The fangs glisten in the moonlight, and the ghosts of the world become restless. We begin our journey. Join us as we travel into the world of the paranormal, the supernatural, and the bizarre on Night Watch with your host, Todd Sheets. Night Watch.
Hello and welcome to Night Watch. That was almost like fight night around here, ladies and gentlemen. Here, Todd Sheets, your host, as always, with my wonderful co-host, Hugh McClanahan.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris Weisbach.
Oh, good evening, everyone.
How you doing?
Round one.
Ding. Good. That's right. That's right. No, I'm just feeling great tonight. First of all, I'm here with my extended family. Good to be here with you guys. Amanda's got wings. She's flying away in there. I don't even understand.
What did I tell you? I told you.
I'm not saying anything.
Everybody, please hold.
I'm not saying anything.
Please hold. Oh, what's that? Oh, the aliens. They've taken Tabitha, and I think that they're dropping him on Uranus.
Yeah, you see, that's what's
Did you
wrong.
hear that? Todd's on Uranus.
Well, I got to tell you,
Don't.
I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to go into it.
Do it.
It's frightening, but I'm so excited about our first guest tonight. We got 3 guests tonight, guys. It's going to be a cram-packed show, but our first guest, just the term alone, cyberphysiology, just makes me go, whoa, I got to read more about that. And Gary Sinclair is here with us tonight. Gary, welcome to the show.
Well, welcome, and hello, world. I love you.
Excellent. Gary, why don't you go ahead, tell our friends out there a bit about yourself and cyberphysiology. I want to say that again, cyberphysiology.
Well, first let's define cyberphysiology. Physiology, of course, is the human body. What we're doing is we're taking and using the framework of cyber, meaning mind, to allow the mind to be the connection point to the body. And in the process, by discovering who we are and then figuring out why we're here, allowing ourselves to really understand our potential as a human to do everything from creating the life you desire to healing the body that's become something that you didn't expect it or want it to be. So cyberphysiology as a response mechanism or understanding of the body came about simply because, and I'm going to give you the short version because the long version's on the website, and that's cyberphysiology.com, but they don't need to go there now. We'll give that to them again. The short story is I was actually born in 1945. That means I'm 66. I was born with only partial lungs, which meant I came in blue. My parents were told that I wouldn't survive, but what they did is they decided to love me to life. They took me home. They did the things you'd expect parents to do. And in 2 weeks, they took me back blue to the hospital, only to be put in an iron lung because back then in 1945, that was the best capacity they had for a lung condition. But obviously, I wasn't expected to live. They loved me to life. I obviously grew up because I'm talking to you on the phone. I knew the days of the week all my life by which shots did I get and which arm the shots went in. I knew the hours of the day by which pills did I take because I literally took medication 24 hours a day in order to breathe because of the limited lung capacity. And those who have lung problems realize you generally grow up as severe asthmatic. So you're allergic to, well, what they told me I was allergic to was trees, grass, plants, and flowers. Okay, so the cow eats and he creates milk, and by the time you finish, figure it out. What was I able to eat?
Not much. Yeah.
Wow.
So between the shots and the pills and I wasn't allowed to be alone. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. I always had somebody pretty much with me because it was one of those things where I knew periodically I was going to end up in the hospital. I was going to end up with pneumonia. I was going to end up back on corticosteroids trying to get my lungs and the infections that would come cleared out. So I walked a really fine line as a child. Jumping ahead all the way up to when I went to college, I chose my first school based on the fact that I knew there were people there that would know how to take care of me because I really wanted to go to school. By the time I finished that school and went on to another school, I got married. I married a woman that was older than I am slightly, and it was one of those things where I knew I'd go before she did because I was the invalid one, basically, while she was nice and healthy. Long story short, again, we had 2 children. We did wait a year, but then we finally had 2 boys. And after that, I woke up one morning, fell right over onto the floor. It happened to be Valentine's Day. On that particular day, I went to the hospital. 30 days later, I had heard all the diagnosis work that I wanted to hear and actually didn't want to hear and was released from the hospital. What they had told me was that I had double vision in both eyes, which means the optic nerves had been severely damaged so that when I looked at something and my heart would beat, everything that I looked at would go up and down and jump, and I would see 2 of everything I was looking at. Now, that's only the beginning. What else had happened was pretty much the left side of my body had gone into a state of what they called neuropathy or paralysis. Because of the spinal taps that they did as the definitive final exams to make sure they clearly understood what was wrong with me, they told me that I had multiple sclerosis.
Oh, man.
They also told me that the definitive diagnosis they really couldn't say what the prognosis would be, but if I would just pay attention to life, slow up a little, take it a little more careful, and just watch the stress and a few other things, that if and when I had another major attack, that would be how they could begin to tell me what life was going to be about. The surprise was, 3 years later, again, Valentine's Day was when I had my next major knockdown, drag-out attack and ended up going to the hospital. And, of course, what did the doctors tell me on that one? Oh, Gary, you need to understand, it'll be every 3 years, just about Valentine's Day, that you'll probably have another knockdown, drag-out attack. And I took their advice. They were the man in the white coat. They were the who sets with the highest magnitude. They had the power. They had the authority to tell me what life was going to be about. And I believed them, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, add to that the fact that I had definitive lung condition. And at this point, my lungs were down to the point where adding in other things that happened that damaged even more of my lungs, I really had 1/3 lung capacity left. And that's not much. I wanted to get to where the MS would be gone, but I had no way to just heal it. So I did one of those things that a lot of people do, and I went and consulted with the church. Now, I'm not opposed to the church, but I was pretty upset when the church told me that I did not have the capacity to heal. And one of the things that happened between then and my lungs was that literally the capacity to heal absolutely became possible. Now, with the MS, I got to where I told my wife on a Friday night that when I took communion that Sunday, from that point on, I would always say I had MS. That was almost 36 years ago. 6 months later, I had to go in for blood work on my lungs. Again, I'm down to 1/3 lung capacity. I'm taking enough aminophylline and Theodore and some other meds, corticosteroids and so forth, so that if the average street-walking person took the dosage that I took, and I took it every 4 hours round the clock, that dosage would kill them.
Wow.
So now here I am. I'm down to 1/3 lung capacity. My doctor wants me to know that, he understands what's happened with the MS because it's obviously I'm in remission. And, of course, I tell him you can write anything you want in your records. I don't care what you call it. I'm telling you I had MS. So now they take my blood work. They go back behind the curtain. They do the analysis. They come back. They inform me that based on the tests that they just did, regardless of the dosage that I was now on, they would need to double that dosage.
It's like a walking drugstore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the thing that they didn't realize was I was a drug addict then. I find that out later because the following Friday night, I looked at my wife at 9 p.m. and I said to her, I need to tell you, when I take communion on Sunday, that's my confirmation with God that my lungs are going to be healed, because I had read scripturally that it says in the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And while reading that at one point in time, I got a visual representation of Christ saying to me, and since you're not going there with MS, what makes you think you got to go with a lung condition? So as I say, I told my wife at 9 p.m. on Friday night. I love it because we were going to a Missouri Lutheran church at that time, and that Sunday, one of the heads of that particular group stood up, got ready to serve communion, and said an interesting thing happened at 9 p.m. on Friday night. He said, I got this message from God that when people take communion today, their lungs are going to heal. Well, needless to say, I couldn't wait to take the common cup. Once I did, I went over to the pastor. I gave him the pills that were in my back pocket because we had planned on going up for a ride into the mountains that afternoon. And, of course, knowing what I'd been through, I go nowhere without pills. I have them hidden everywhere just so I know where that, quote, secret stash is.
Right.
Well, he turned my hand back over and gave me back the pills. Even though he understood, I confirmed it at 9 o'clock on Friday night. He got the message from God. Didn't seem to matter. He gave me back the pills. So I turned his hand back over and said, whose faith are we to doubt, mine or God's? And I can't tell you how many stories of miracles I've heard since then that relate directly to that day and his receiving more of the power of what God was capable to do through the message that day. So from that point on, obviously, everybody started coming up to me saying, what did you do? What happened? How did it do it? Because 15 minutes from that point on, 15 minutes later, I had whole new, complete lungs. I mean, I breathe all the way down with complete. If I go and take a test at a hospital for breathing today, they will tell you I have 100% full pulmonary function. So in 15 minutes, I literally got new lungs. A wonderful feeling. Matter of fact, I got so dizzy because I hadn't had that much oxygen in years. It was interesting to be buzzing on that for a while. But the people started wanting to know because they got to where they really press in because, let's face it, we live in a world where people are not exactly the healthiest.
Yeah, true.
So without having answers, I started doing research. I looked at every form of therapy that involved the person's part in healing. I knew that I'd use a chiropractor. I knew I'd use acupuncture. I knew I'd use diet. I knew I'd use a lot of things. And what happened is over the course of 6 years studying every form of therapy that was out there, I actually created a program called Life Cleanout. That's one of the programs that they've given me a Lifetime Achievement Award for. But the key was all the pieces that I put together from everything that was out there, because regardless of the course I took, when I finished the course, I wasn't there because I needed to be healed, or I was there specifically looking at, what I could get out of that course. I was there figuring out if this course was so great, why did it work? When did it work? How did it work? Where was the magic moment that produced results? And because of that, I put as much of the best of everything out there that will allow a person to understand their capacity, to look at their ability to heal, to look at their memory structure, to look at what holds them back, to look at where they've gone in life and why they've gone in the direction they've gone in, and created Life Cleanout. And as I say, that became an award-winning program.
Wow.
The key to the entire program, though, is basically the one major lesson that I learned through studying everything else, and that is at the other than conscious level, there is an obedient servant who makes literal truth out of whatever you say or think as a direct command of action about you. Now, that's a long statement, so I'm going to say it again, and then I'll explain it. At the other than conscious level, there's an obedient servant who makes literal truth out of whatever you say or think as a direct command of action about you. Now, some of the things that I learned and some of the things that I absolutely internally believed to be completely true, I couldn't validate at the time. Today, I can validate those things scientifically. For example, when I talk about at the other than conscious level, that's the level at which you really live. Most people believe that that's a complete brain function. However, which brain are we talking about?
Exactly.
Actually, let me explain that one again. At the other than conscious level, where do you physically function in life, and where do all those emotions and structure function from? A group in California called Heart Math Institute, and the research is available online, about 20 years ago, came up with research that shows that if they do a scan of a mother's body at 9 weeks of age while she's pregnant, it will show on that scan that there is a heartbeat within the fetus that's developing. However, that heartbeat is completely synchronistic with the mother's heartbeat. They are one and the same. The energy field that expands out from the mother will be about 22 to 24 feet out on that scan and reading equipment. However, at 10 weeks of age, there's an independent beat that begins to take place within that fetus. And the interesting thing is, it's independent and separate from the beat that mother has. So when you repeat the test for the scan that you did just a week before, all of a sudden there's a new energy field that's going 10 to 12 to 14 feet out from mother, as well as her energy field, which exceeds out beyond that. And that beating heart frequency is then modulating the structure and the growth and the control of the rest of the body. The heart was where you came in originally, and the heart is still where you are today.
Oh, that's true.
Some of the best work that's been done has shown that the average person has roughly 60 to 65,000 complete thoughts a day. The problem is 90 to 95% of those thoughts are the same ones they had the day before, because they're repeating that structure of what's processing and coming back up. Now, as I talk to you, you're hearing what I'm saying. Some of the people are visualizing it. Some of them are actually feeling what I'm saying. But all of that you're taking in is going down and into that processing piece that's in your heart called your brain. Then by distortion, dilution, generalization, all the memory structure that you have stored all over your body, that is being sent back up into consciousness 1/10,000th of a second later. And because that heart's processing it in that way, you now are aware in consciousness of what I'm saying and what it means to you. And it may not be meaning the same thing to another person. So out of the heart flow the issues of life. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In other words, heart and brain. But what we do is we grow up believing the brain is our control center, and we can do it all. The big fallacy in that whole belief is the fact that I've yet to meet one person that when I say to them, well, go ahead and stop your heartbeat 3 beats and let me know when you have.
Yeah, exactly.
They look at you, they get this blank look, and they say, well, I can't do that. Well, then let's face it. Then something that is greater than who you are allowed a controlling life force to be placed there at 10 weeks of age. And from that point on, it has always been who you are. So part of the process that I do with people is I allow them to do what I call a journey inside themselves and literally go into the heart and discover that seed of the soul in there, to really feel the presence of who they are. And then allow that connection, because what they're going to find there is they're going to find love. They're going to find unconditional love. They're going to find an energy that is so warm and loving and beautiful. And when they take that energy and spread it throughout their whole being, they begin to realize, yes, this is me. This is what life is all about. This is what I've been seeking for. I've never found it.
Wow.
Then I'm going to teach them the processes that will allow them to, number one, stop all the reasons why they can't progress in life, and then learn how to agree with your heart and manifest those things that you truly desire. Remember, it says the only thing God's promised you is the desires of your heart. Understanding what I just taught you about thought and all thought being processed through the heart, going through all the filters of life, all the teaching training that you've had and coming back up to consciousness, then realize what you're thinking is considered by the heart to be what you desire. Therefore, that beating energy that's being put out into your body and into the universe that's cycling through the energy of your heart is saying, this is what they desire. I know it is. It's what they thought about. The problem is you'll never get enough of what you don't want, because most people think about what they don't want. They repeat the pattern over and over and over. And because of that, they draw to them repeatedly the things in life that they really don't want. But when you understand that that heart and soul really takes your thought, doesn't recognize do and don't, doesn't recognize yes and no, it recognizes the command of action that's contained within a sentence and pulls towards you or produces the energy outward from you to attract to you that which you're putting in there, then truly you have all your life received the desires of your heart. Now, some people will say to me, well, that's not true. When we really sit down and talk about it, they begin to realize now would probably be the best time for that lie to die, because the reality is you've helped in the process of manifesting all of it. So it's been an interesting journey. The number one thing that I really ultimately realized is that the biggest change that I ever made to heal was I had to learn to love me. I mean, literally, I had to learn to love all of me. Let me give you an example. I was speaking about 5 years ago, somewhere in that range, I've lost track, in Rochester, Michigan. In the process of doing that session, there was a woman there that night who was going in the following morning to see her doctor, going to the hospital. Surgically, he was going to remove what they could already feel by hand as her 13th cancer surgery. Now, hear what I'm saying. We're talking the same doctor, the same body, her 13th surgery. She listened to me speak that night, and one of the things that I taught is is being taught, a lot of it, in the last book that I just released, and we hopefully get to talk about that. That's available on the web. I taught them the power in and of love to heal. And what I said to the group that night, because there were about 50 people there, 50, 60 range that opening night, it grew to where we had to find another building by the time we were done. But that night, what I taught was the power in and of love to heal. And I said to this group, if you knew today that you were only allowed one friend for the rest of your life, now listen to me, I'm only going to offer you two. You can only have one. That's it for the rest of your life. Forget everybody else you've ever known. You can have one who hates you, antagonizes you, does everything to put you down, and you know what I'm talking about. Or you can have one who absolutely loves you, in fact, unconditionally loves you, does everything they can for you, and does everything to pull you up. Which friend do you choose? And, of course, one man that night raised his hand and said, well, I'd take the one that antagonizes me, because without all that in life isn't worth living. I found out later that he died. He died within months of a lung condition. Okay? Because, again, understand what he's saying. I want my body to be under attack.
Yeah, I want pessimism in my
life. That
life.
gal went home and determined, after, again, several other things that I did that night, because one of the things that every now and then will come up is some of the miraculous things that have taken place when I speak. But that night, there were no specific miracles. I did take one of those great big 18 by 8 gauge stainless steel spoons that you'd find in a salad bar. I explained to the room that 18 gauge stainless is unbendable. It has a memory of its own. Once they hit it with 2,000 pounds of pressure to form that spoon, it does not bend. I sent it all around the room, told them all to bend it. By the time it came back up to me, I twisted it up like a corkscrew. I said, or pretty much like a corkscrew. I sent it around the room. They couldn't unbend it. They couldn't do anything to it. When they sent it up to me again, I finished screwing it up like a corkscrew. And what I said to them is, we fail to understand what we're capable of doing. We fail to understand the power in and of love to connect with anything and allow change to take place. So that night, she went home taking in all the lessons that I taught that night, and specifically that she had the ability to not hate what was wrong with her. She had the ability to love what was wrong with her and say to her body, this is who I am, and I love everything there is about me. Nothing do I not love. Everything. The following morning, she went to the hospital. They did pre-op work. From her definition the following day when she talked to us, because she actually spoke at the next session, they did pre-op work on her 5 times before the doctor, who was calling them all idiots and a few other names that we won't mention. But he came out really upset because he had an operating room on standby. They haven't got this woman ready. They need all the marks. They need to know what they're doing. They need the scans and all. By the time he came out, he went in and did her blood work. He went in and did the scan work. And when he came back, he looked at her and grinned from ear to ear and said, well, I truly have to apologize to the staff, but I have to tell you, you're absolutely right. There is no cancer that we're going to remove. As a matter of fact, I can't find cancer anywhere in your body. And then he turned and looked at her and said, and I have to tell you, there's not a sign or a marker in your blood work that you've ever had cancer. The staff was literally right. So whatever you're doing, do not stop. you've seen a miracle.
Yeah.
Man.
You guys need to ask some questions.
Hugh, do you got something over there?
Yeah, I was going to say, what happened when you went back to the doctors after you had your lungs renewed? What did they say to you?
Oh, that was interesting because, again, I had made an appointment for 2 weeks later because when I went and to ask him to double the dosage, and he told me that what they'd have to do, I said, no, you can't do that. You just give me prescriptions for the last 2 weeks, I'll come back. If I haven't healed in 2 weeks, then you can write the prescriptions. And he looked at me like, this is a joke. But he wrote the prescriptions. The lungs healed on a Sunday. On a Tuesday at 9 a.m., I'm in his office. He comes in, typical official doctor, stethoscope, starts listening to my chest, and finally realizes, wait a second, I'm listening to Sinclair. He backs up, he looks at me, and he says, okay, Sinclair, out with it. What happened? So I told him. He grabbed his board and he says, okay, this I have to call a miracle. And then he grabs his prescription pad and begins to write out more prescriptions. And he says, okay, I'm just going to give you these because you got to understand, we have to get you off the drugs you've been on for the last 36 and a half years. Now, I'm sure I took the prescriptions, but I know for sure they were never filled. I have no idea where they are. I still have a bottle of the last prescription of Theodore that I had at that point in time that I've never taken one of. In fact, the only time I ever saw a doctor for my lungs again was when here in California in the USA, we had an extreme Southern California fire where there were literally 3 fires at the same time. If you think of that as the letter C, I was in the middle of the letter C looking at the fires out my front window, my side window, and my back window because I'm on a hill.
Yeah.
And the smoke was so bad. I went to the hospital. I said, I know you guys can give me a breathing treatment. I'll gladly pay for it. I don't want you to do anything more, but I know I've got so much soot and debris in my lungs. If you'll just give me that one boost, I'll be absolutely fine. And I wouldn't give them the rest of my medical history. And they did because, again, people lined up everywhere because of the fires.
I liked where you went with the story when you were talking about you went to church and they basically kind of told you the same thing everyone else was telling you. Instead of telling you, well, if you have this positive influence and if you believe in this, then you will heal, they told you, well, you're not going to heal, which kind of brings me to the point that we talk about on the show sometimes where there's a difference between religion and spirituality, and it seems like you made your own personal connection there to improve yourself.
Unbelievable. Your answer is so right. Let me give you a couple more insights there, because if you're going to bring religion into it, I'd love to. One of the things that the church is always going to do is they're going to use a biblical base upon which you are to alter your confession. Now, I was born with defective lungs, so when I actually went and met with the board of this particular church, what they said to me was, you got to understand, you were born this way. This is the way God intended for you to be. You are like, and here's the reference they gave me, you are like Job's thorn in the flesh. Just know, or rather Paul's thorn in the flesh. Just know that God gave you this condition. Now, that threw me because I'm looking at these guys. They have already watched me heal from MS. And what I did is I got up in their meeting and I said, no, wait a second, guys. Your God is too small. When you get to meet the God that I know, the power that I know that I have inside of me, then miracles will take place in this church. But I'm leaving. I will be back. I will come here and talk to you again as soon as I'm healed. Now, it was at that point where, again, studying the scripture, I ran across the Lord's Prayer where it said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and in the visualization saw the power of Christ telling me that literally I wasn't going up there with a lung condition. Why? I wasn't going up there with MS. So now I began to look at all the verses that the church uses for everybody, no matter where they're at. They have specific scripture references that they use to determine that it's okay for this one to be sick when that one got a miracle. So what I decided to do is to work on debunking those scriptures. And by the time you start going through them and working with them, they're really easy to debunk. The hardest one to debunk was Paul's thorn in the flesh. But then I studied everything that Paul ever said about sickness and disease, realizing he never said anything. Paul said, I was boiled in oil, I was stoned, I was left homeless, I was stripped, I was taken to the desert, I was left without food. He goes on and on. Every time he explains what his life has been about, he's explaining things that took place to him. He does say, I was given a thorn in the flesh, but the reason why he was given a thorn in the flesh was so that he would be not so heavily minded that he would become no earthly good. That thorn in the flesh was there to allow him to stay connected and trust the presence of God flowing through him to be able to continue to serve at the capacity that he was serving. Now, let's look at it again. He called it a thorn in the flesh. Go back to the Old Testament where they're fleeing Egypt. They're about to go into the Promised Land. What are they told? When you go into the Promised Land, make sure you destroy every inhabitant in the land. If you do not destroy every inhabitant, then they will become to you as pricks in your eyes and thorns in your flesh. Where do you think he was? He was in the Promised Land. And what was happening to him? Those that were not destroyed became those who did all of those things to him. They became his thorn in the flesh. The people that he chose to serve were the ones who were his tormentors. They were the ones who stoned him. They were the ones that boiled him in oil. They are the ones that stripped him. They are the ones that robbed him. They are the ones that beat him out. They are the ones that took him into the desert and left him. It wasn't a physical disease ever. It never comes up in any of his discussion. His thorn in the flesh was the other people and what they were doing to him that caused him to be rejoicing in the presence of God flowing through him. So by the time it was done, there was no scripture left that I could find that allowed anybody to have legitimate reason to say, I have this because. And then they come back and say, well, just remember, I mean, you can't possibly cover birth defects with that. And I said, now, wait a second. I was the one that had the lungs heal. Let's forget that one now also, okay?
There you go.
And allow it to come through. Yeah, I've spoken to a few churches where they've asked me not to come back.
I bet. Chris, did you have something over there?
No, I think it's amazing, really. I think scientists are just now trying to understand the power of the subconscious mind.
Well, now that they know literally the way the processing structure functions based on emotions and feelings and that information that you're taking in, because really, you're taking in close to 2 billion bits of information per second. I'm sitting in a chair, but I wasn't paying attention to that energy until I just said those words and thought about it. But in a few moments, I won't be thinking about it, but I'm still taking in that information. Consciously, we go from 2 billion down to processing and back up into consciousness comes 2,000 bits of information.
Yeah.
We don't realize we are not the thought. We are only the thinker of the thought. Everybody has all this information passing through them, but what you pay attention to determines where you're at.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You only live in now, and what you pay attention to in now is all that matters. I talked to someone 3 days ago, and I ended up using a phrase that I use a lot. I said, let's realize that what you're talking about, that was then, and this is now. What you're thinking in this moment, now, is what's determining what your life is all about, now and in the future, if there can be such a thing as the future. But I have to tell you, the future will always be now.
I guess that gives a whole new meaning to the word live in the now, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
we're getting close on time, but I wanted to make sure we get all your information out so people can check this out on their own.
Okay, well, number one, the book that's got the biblical base of those studies looking at, Scripture, all the miracles of Christ in their own way are touched upon in that book, and it's about the power of belief. That book is available for free on the website as long as they request that download. They just have to go in and request it. It'll send a link back. If they don't get the link, they email. When it catches up with me, I promise to respond. And if they don't get the download off the web, I will send it to them. But it's simply cyber physiology, and it's spelled just the way you say it, cyber, C-Y-B-E-R, physiology, P-H-Y-S-I-O-L-O-G-Y. If you think of cyber, space, being in the mind, and body, cyberphysiology.com, they will discover the free book on there. Now, they'll discover some others that I've had. The only other one that I'd really like them to pay attention to is if they'll read a bit in there about the book called Healing Alex, Healingalex. That book is available on Amazon.com, cheaper than I can sell it to them, literally based on the price I paid for it. So I would recommend that they order it on Internet Structure, wherever they're at. But Healing Alex is a fictional story about a young man who experiences trauma, and that book is 2 books in one. The first book teaches how do you heal traumatic memories you've never told anybody about without ever telling anybody one word about it. And again, that's part of the key to healing in life that holds so many people back, the traumas they've had that they just won't find help for, won't seek help for. That book has the answer built right into it phenomenally, and it works. The second book, which is part of that singular book, there's 2 books in one, is teaching the power in and of love to heal. Again, the book is a fictional story. Every piece of therapeutic work in there is what they pay me $2,000 to teach. That I promise.
Wow.
But they'll read the book. They'll begin to say, oh, my word, I wish so-and-so could read this. Buy it for them. Give it to them. If they need them autographed, fine, I can do all that. But it's not about me autographing a book. It's about allowing the information that's there to change the lives of other people. The one they'll get on the web is called Your Empowering Spirit. Millions of people's lives have been changed because that information's been given away. It was ready to be published by a publisher. It was going to go into final edits when 9/11 in the USA hit. I felt God compel me to say, go give it away for free. I love it. I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to. My life is dedicated to FROG, and some people would say that's fraud. Yeah, my life is dedicated to the future results of growth in other people. And if you can look in the mirror and say, I love you to who you see in the mirror, looking into the eyes of who you see, and learn that you are what love is, then all life will be about giving that love away, knowing that as you give, it comes back. Receiving becomes the evidence that you're a giver, and life for you will be what's called love living rather than love seeking.
Well, I do love that message. That's really cool. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And Gary, I want to thank you. I got a feeling we're just scratching the surface here. Maybe in the future we can bring you back on and get a little more in depth. Our friends out there are loving this, and I know we are too. So thank you so much.
And we had more questions too.
Yeah, we got more. So we're just out of time.
Well, who's ever out there, just know one thing from the bottom of my heart. I love you.
Wow.
Nothing matters more. And if you understand that nothing matters more than love, when you find that, you find who you are in the midst of it. Bless you.
That is awesome. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Have a wonderful evening, my friend.
Thank you.
That was just enlightening, deep. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I love you, Todd.
Just one of them things.
No, it was a great show.
It was.
Intriguing guy.
It's not over yet.
I know. We still got more. We're going to take a break. We will be right back after this.
You can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it.
Delicious.
Hey, this is Dr. George Hardy from Alabama, and I was in the movie Troll 2 and the new documentary Best Worst Movie. Enjoy Night Watch.
Hey, you listen to Night Watch and keep doing it, else I come over there and put my boot all up in your ass.
Oh, I didn't mean to frighten you prematurely. The real chills come later. Now, as they say, look alive, and we'll continue our little tour. And let's all stay together, please.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, riding early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere.
Night Watch.
Going nowhere.
You're listening to Night Watch, a Jackalope Media production, with your hosts, Todd Sheets, Hugh McClanahan, and Chris Watsbach. And welcome back to Night Watch. I'm your host, as always, Todd Sheets, here with Hugh McClanahan and Chris Weisbach.
Hello.
Want a date?
Uh-oh, Chris. They're lining up. They're outside.
Want a date?
Hey, all I got to say is, Chris, you know, it's been too long, my friend.
Man, Foodie done did it again.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Chicks dig me.
Do the robot. Do it. Come on.
Chris Weisbach.
Why am I here?
Chicks dig me.
Chris Weisbach.
It's just too much. It's too much.
It's all for you.
Yeah, I know.
You digging it?
Chicks dig me.
I love it. I love it. Where's the potty?
My butt itches.
Chicks dig me.
Chris Weisbach.
I rarely wear underwear.
Nipple.
Capichow.
Chicks dig me.
Septum.
My brother.
Water time.
What do you think?
Nipple.
Yeah, baby.
Before we get any crazier around here, which we had to get a little crazy after that serious first half of spirituality, but now we're going to talk with Rob Delamorte. And you're maybe wondering, who the heck is Rob Delamorte? Well, he hosts a show called Delamorte's Dungeon of Deadly Delights. Kind of sounds like Amanda's Closet. I'm kind of worried at this point about that. But I'm very excited about this because Rob is a good guy. I first listened to his show via podcast. He was doing some podcast stuff there, and I heard this raw energy, this passion, and I thought, dude's after my own heart with the kind of stuff he's into. He's into some good horror stuff. And what I like about Rob is he digs some of the modern stuff, but he's really stuck with, like me, in the classic stuff, not just the classics of the 40s, the 50s, but also the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. We love the same kind of stuff. So everybody, welcome to the show, Rob Delamorte.
Hey, what's up, Todd? Everybody, how you doing?
Good.
We are
so great to be a part of Dingo and the Baby tonight.
Yeah, that's right. We have the pouch all ready for you. All you got to do is just jump right on in. Just jump right on in.
So you guys had a faith healer on before me, so get ready to get your chakras kicked down your throat.
That's it. We're going to get some chakras going around here. Now, Rob, you have done it all, man. You kind of pulled yourself up from the bootstraps. And one of the things I really want our friends to know about you, not long ago, you were homeless.
I started this gig about a year ago, and it was just honestly a situation where I was just in a bad spot, man. Bad girlfriend, bad situation. So I ended up heading into a library. This is no lie, by the way. Just to get out of the heat one day, and this columnist Dave Green was looking for a replacement columnist for horrornews.net because she was going on sick leave for surgery. And what happened was I just wrote her and said, I really love this genre. I've never actually done it before. I don't have any learning when it comes to writing or anything. Just give me a shot. I might be able to do something that's special. And she contacted me, and I took over for her column, and that's basically how it started out. The first person that I interviewed Adrienne King, who I love to death. She's been so supportive this entire time. She was actually the first person that I interviewed at a Dunkin' Donuts coffee shop with nothing but a cell phone and some pieces of paper. That's pretty punk rock, I thought. And
oh, yeah.
About 2.5 hours we talked. And I just scrolled down everything that woman had to say, and that woman can speak. But it was so great, and that was the first time I actually felt like I was a part of this, this horror situation, that I love so much, and that's basically how it started out. And then from there, it just really stemmed from me doing the column where I was just basically giving people my updates on the latest and greatest and everything out there in horror. And then I just decided I wanted to do interviews. And, just some dirt kid from Philadelphia, I honestly never called an agent before in my entire life. I never actually had to call California or any of that stuff. And it was just something that I picked up. And, then all of a sudden I have all these crazy people calling my apartment at the time. It was Elvira one time and Laurie Holden from The Walking Dead. And I talked to Michael Rooker a few times. And my childhood hero, Michael Bean, man. I was just really shocked that these people were actually calling my house and letting me interview them. So, I mean,
they call my house for pizza. It's
yeah. That's basically how it started out, though. I mean, it was just like you said, the drive and the will to want to do something and do something different with your life. And hell, nobody ever told me that horror could take me anywhere. A lot of people told me it'd rot my brain, and they probably thought I was going to become a serial killer or something.
What happened to Todd?
Things can drop in your lap, and it's what you do with these things that kind of opens the next doorway in your life. Everybody out there has these choices, and it's chapters will open and chapters will close. And sometimes it feels like you were talking about being in a horrible relationship and you ended up homeless and things, and it felt like, I'm sure at that time, man, I have nowhere to turn. I'm hitting a dead end here, and I feel like, but then, man, you hung in there, and the doors started opening for you, and now you're doing a good job. You got a successful show, and you're having a good time, and you're part of the family here at Jackalope, and we're just rolling, man. We're rolling constantly. Heck, man, every time you turn around, there's something crazy going on.
Well, thanks. I mean, I really I don't know. I was kind of worried about coming on here because I was like, who the hell is going to want to hear me rant about whatever. I don't talk down to people. And I let people know that I care about them, and they're, they basically give me the drive to move on and do these, amazing things. And sometimes it gets hard, That podcast you listened to, Todd, was actually an incarnation in my own head one day, and I said to myself, I want these people to feel the same joy that I feel when I get to talk to these amazing actors and stuff. So I came up with this podcast, and the majority of my team when I started out was from Facebook. One of them having to be Amy Lyons from Bruce Campbell country, where I'm at now in Michigan, and she helped me out for a bit there, you know, and I acquired the guests, and we talked to like probably like 60-some people in 5 months.
There you go.
That's like literally 3 guests every week, you know, and that would range from like Dee Wallace one day to Michael Rooker the next to Emma Bell from The Walking Dead. I mean, it was always somebody. I think horror definitely has the most imaginative stuff out there. I think that's why I love it so much.
Definitely.
And
yeah.
coincidentally, I actually I got into horror because of a man with a red jacket in a dream. And that wasn't me, by the way. That was actually Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was actually the first thing that I got into as far as horror. I was like really young. Yeah, I remember. Remember when they played Thriller on a loop, and it was actually the video, and then all of a sudden they play the making of.
Right. John Landis and the guys. Yeah.
Right. So it kind of like softened the blow a little bit, you know, because you know, like as a young kid, you know, I was actually scared of a lot of stuff, and I hated the sight of blood. You know, it's just crazy how I turned out. It turned out to be a real psycho, but before, I was just this little saintly Catholic kid, you know, that was scared of everything. I think that was one of
most
the things
Catholic kids are, I think.
Right. Well, they're scared of their priests usually, but
and the nuns with the big rulers.
Speaking of, you want to help me put on my jacket, there, son? No, thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Never run another man's
Yeah. Good. That's nice.
I actually got into horror because of Michael Jackson. You know, I know that's not the coolest thing to say, but I owe everything to him because I actually got into horror that way, and I started watching John Landis. John Landis was actually the first director that I got into at a young age. So I started watching like American Werewolf in London and all that stuff. And then I'd have nightmares for 3 weeks. But, you know, like it kind of like softened the blow more and more for me, just getting into more horror and stuff. And so I've been into this stuff for a good long time, man. I'll be 33 in like 2 weeks, almost 3. Well, I think 3 weeks. I don't know.
He's got me beat. I'm going to be 17. I can't.
He's just a baby.
Yeah. Oh. So, you know, like I've been doing this thing for a year, and it's just crazy how amazing everything turned out. It's just, and I just love being part of the Jackalope family. But yeah, it's
we're
awesome
the good kind. Yeah.
Yes, you're the good kind. Like horror's been a part of our social fabric probably since the dawn of man, when they were like telling stories around the campfire. I didn't cause this. I didn't make this happen. It's just something that, you know, that's been going on, and you know, it's just something that I just picked up and I love. And you know, horror is not a bad thing. It's just a person that watches something like that actually, like, you know, that gets affected in a negative way. That's the problem. It's not the genre itself. I think horror is probably the most, I don't know, would you guys agree? It's probably the most community-oriented genre out there.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people will give each other a chance and work on stuff and make things right.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And, you know, and that's what I wanted to bring back. You know, I'm from the old school, you know, where, you know, you go to a show and, you know, everybody helps pick up all the, you know, equipment and sets it up and, you know, all that stuff. And that's how I want it to be. I want to be able to help out everybody and do a service that, you know, people that are actually like, you know, that love this genre as much as I do. And that's like the whole thing for me, is just to have a community and have people like really care about this genre again, because it's dying.
Yeah,
man, it really is. You know what I mean? It really is dying. There's a lot of great stuff out there, but people aren't paying attention to it because they'd rather go and watch the Straw Dogs remake or Fright Night or
right.
And you know,
Dream
like,
House. I'm all over that.
Yeah,
one.
Dream House. There's no, you know, look, it's like I said, you know, Hollywood is gonna slight us. I mean, they've been doing it for quite a long time.
Well, it started because they started hiring people from Applebee's to run the studios instead of...
No. It's no real thought anymore.
Even beyond that, it goes to the point where you used to be a director, a writer, producer. You'd work yourself up the ranks. We talked about that one day, and you'd end up a studio head. Well, now they hire marketing people from Applebee's, or actually Chili's, I think, was one. And I'm going,
wow,
what in the hell is these? How the hell are these people in charge of acquisitions for a studio? It's all about marketing. It's not about filmmaking anymore, and that's why things get the remakes are out there. But I have to tell you, that if we start speaking with our wallets and we start writing to these studios and telling them, look, we want R-rated horror. We just don't want to see someone destroy a movie we love.
Yeah, put something quality out there. I'll tell you what, I saw Apollo 18 over the weekend.
Was that good?
No.
Chris, that was a great face.
That was awesome.
No, it was dumb.
Really?
Do you feel enlightened after watching that?
I think it was Blair Witch in Space, wasn't it?
No. Yeah, that's exactly
That's what
it.
I called it, yeah.
Even the close-ups of the face, right, with the snot running down and everything.
Oh, yeah? That's
except in space.
Oh, wow. I've always wanted to see that.
The last scary movie I saw was probably, the Happy Days movie, right? The movie they made from Happy Days.
It's called Jumping the Shark.
Well, that was it. That was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
But there's a lot of good stuff, like I said, out there. There's actually 2 movies that I saw. They were one of my probably 2 of my most anticipated, and they did not disagree with me. And one of those happened to be Bereavement.
Oh yeah, good one.
I thought that was amazing. I thought Steve and Mina did a really, really good job on that.
And it's on Blu-ray, folks. It's on Blu-ray. So there you go.
Yeah, and when you guys can, I know it's floating around festivals right now. You got to check out The Woman too. When Jack Ketchum and Lucky McKee get together, it's just ridiculous.
Well, Rob, now we got to tell everybody before we get off here because we got a little bit more time, but I got to tell everybody your show. Tell them when it airs, man. Jackalope.
All right, it airs Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and then 7 p.m. for you folks out there on the Central Time. And we actually record every Wednesday. It sounds a little muddy, but Todd is not only a great host, but he's also a wonderful producer as well, and he comes up with some really great stuff because we come up with some messy shows. We really do. We're just like, oh no,
it's like a party on there. It's like party line,
dude. Well, with you guys, like you guys, you guys are just riffing right now, and it works and it's electric, and that's what we try to bring to the whole thing. We just try to bring it horror style, and that's what we do. And the thing that we want to do with the show basically is, there's a lot of horror shows that actually will have people just disagree with each other, agree with each other. I had mentioned it to Todd actually before I started working for Jackalope. I really honestly want to be like the Conan O'Brien of creepy. I want to do like an actual talk show where I talk to somebody every week, and it's not just us, bitching about, like how we hate this and this and that. And that happens.
Now, Rob, if you grow your hair like Conan, we may have to talk. I may have to insure your hair at that point. It might be an insurance.
I can't grow my hair anymore, so you're lucky in that respect.
Yeah, I think Amanda's having that problem lately.
Stop talking about my haircut.
My girlfriend is the one that looks like Jimmy Neutron, though. Like she's got the Jimmy Neutron going.
That is
I
awesome.
like Jimmy Neutron.
She's got the full-on pompadour, man. I dig it. That's cool. That is rocking. Man, she has earned my respect even more at this point.
So it airs on Thursday. There's actually a couple things, though, if I can, I just wanted to talk about real quick with people. No, I just want to thank everybody for being so supportive of, what we do and, what I try to do for you guys. And anybody who's interested, look me up on Facebook. You just look up Rob Delamorte. And, I post on that sucker every day, basically. And that's how this all started out. And Todd, you're right, man. I am about the classics. If I could talk to Boris Karloff, if I could talk to Bela Lugosi, if I could talk to Mela Nurmi, I totally would. But
and as far as the classics go, one day we'll just have one of our buddies here from Night Watch come in. We'll just do a damn seance. We'll just pull Boris in. We'll just have a good time.
We could do
That'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
I could do
That'd
that.
Be really awesome. We got some great guests coming up. Tune in Thursday when we have Rob Hall and his new fiance. Congratulations, Rob. Angelina Armani and Rob Hall are going to be on the show.
Sweet.
The week after that, we'll have Ashley Bank from Monster Squad. The week after that, we'll have Doug back. And if you guys are into classic horror literature, please go to Renegade Arts Entertainment and check out the Spine Chiller series from Doug Bradley and Alexander Fimbo. They're amazing.
Agreed.
And that's we're being sponsored by them right now. Todd, you know that.
Yep, it's awesome. I love it.
But yeah, so Doug and Alexander will be back to announce that, and then after that, we'll have Kane Hodder for the start of October.
Yeah.
So I think that's not too bad. Kane.
That's right.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you so much for letting me on here, man, and I'm sure people were like, "Who the hell is this dude?" But
now, they'll know after what? After this show, they're going to go check it out. Everybody go check it out. Jackaloperadio.com. You can go in the archives area, and you got the Dungeon Show right there, man. You can check it out.
Yeah, keep it real. Keep it real.
That's right.
No matter what anybody tells you, no matter what you think you can't do, what you can't accomplish, if you have enough drive, you can do anything, man. It's going to be a rough road, but I hope that, if you got anything out of this story, it's living proof that, you can make
builder card
happen. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But
see, bring Rob on the show, and it already turns into a soiree.
Well, listen, thank you guys so much. Amanda, thank you. Todd, thank you. Everybody else, you guys have a good night.
Take care, my friend.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Wow. You can just feel that energy flowing.
Oh, he's got it going.
Yeah. He's got it going on.
Break time.
Oh, man, it is time. We got to go. We got another guest coming on. Everybody hang out with us for Bob Gleason coming up next.
Hey, this is Tom Atkins. You're listening to Night Watch. Thrill me, man.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
And now, back to Night Watch.
Yoda, this is, and listening tonight, what you are, and will continue to do. Foreseen it, I have. Yeah.
Night Watch, a Jackalope Media production, with your hosts Todd Sheets, Hugh McClanahan, and Chris Weisbach.
And now, back to Night Watch.
Yoda, this is, and listening tonight, what you are, and will continue to do. Foreseen it, I have. Yeah.
Night Watch, a Jackalope Media production, with your hosts Todd Sheets, Hugh McClanahan, and Chris Weisbach.
And welcome back to Night Watch. I'm your host, as always, Todd Sheets, here with Hugh McClanahan and Chris Weisbach.
Good evening.
How you doing, guys?
I'm good.
Doing good. We are rocking the guests tonight. We had 3 guests tonight. Our wonderful first guest, Gary Sinclair, followed by Rob Delamorte, and now we have Bob Gleason. We're going to talk about a couple things, but before we go into that real quick, I just want to take one brief second here and give one moment because I want to honor the families and the heroes and the victims of 9/11. Our show is not on for 9/11, but we're shortly thereafter, so I wanted to be sure to let everyone know that our hearts are with them, and everyone in New York, that this week is very difficult for a lot of our friends that live there, and I wanted to say that we're with you in spirit, and definitely it was a life-changing day, and to this day we are very thankful to those heroes, those firefighters, and those civilians and those police officers that all pulled in together and tried to save lives, because it was a very, very tough thing. And we're here with you guys 100%. So just wanted to take a minute to do that. And now we're going to move on with Bob Gleason and the book End of Days. Bob, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Now, Bob, let's go ahead and let you tell our friends out there about the End of Days and yourself a little bit, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I've been a book editor in New York for, my God, since pretty much forever. Now I've worked with a lot of well-known authors. I've published 13 novels already. And I'd done a big novel about 15 years ago called Wrath of God, which is actually the sequel to End of Days. I was in Caroline's kind of about Wrath of God, I was in Caroline's Comedy Club once, and Rosie O'Donnell came up to me, and she stuck a microphone in my face, and she said, "What's your name?" like that. And I said, "Bob." And she said, "What do you do for a living, Bob?" And I said, "I'm a book publisher and a novelist." She said, "What's your new book about, Bob?" And I said, "George Patton, Stonewall Jackson, Amelia Earhart, and a dinosaur fight, Tamerlane and the Great Islamic Horde in the 21st century in the southwestern desert after a nuclear holocaust." And she said, "Smoke a lot of crack, don't you, Bob?" and then she'd go around to a table and she'd say, "What's your name?" And the woman would say, "Lucy." And she'd say, "What's your boyfriend's name, Lucy?" And Lucy would say, "George." And Rosie would say, "Lucy, George looks real boring. You know, what he needs is some hard drugs. You know, talk to Bob after the show." So, anyway, but the funny thing was that Wrath of God was actually the sequel to End of Days. And I'd worked on End of Days on and off for 28 years, actually.
Wow.
And I did the first outline, a 200-page outline of it back in 1983. And it's something that haunted me. And it's based really on a scenario by the late Herman Kahn, who he devised it 50 years ago in a book called Thinking About the Unthinkable. And he was a legendary nuclear strategist that came up with all kinds of incredible scenarios that nobody else had really thought about before or since. But he had one in Thinking About the Unthinkable, where he said that he called it catalytic nuclear war. And he said it would be possible one day if the delivery systems proliferated enough, and if the nuclear bomb fuel proliferated enough, that because once you get the nuclear bomb fuel, it's shockingly easy to cobble together a very powerful nuclear weapon. And he said that once the delivery systems proliferated and the nuclear bomb fuel proliferated, that it would be possible for what he called a small vengeful power in league with terrorists that are really smart to create the illusion that the great powers are nuking each other. And he said, and guess what, in retaliation they would. And he said he thought that was the most frightening and the most plausible of scenario for global nuclear annihilation, for a nuclear Armageddon. And I was kind of haunted by that, and particularly with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. Suddenly, that they had huge, storage sites all over Russia, which were essentially unguarded and unprotected. This went on for decades. And Russell Sykes once called that period in Russia the yard sale at the end of history. And so this became really the Herman Kahn's scenario really became feasible, and particularly since the Soviets or the Russians now have proliferated a lot of Kilo-class submarines, which can be reconfigured to fire nuclear-tipped cruise missiles, and practically all the industrial nations proliferate cruise missiles, and it really didn't. There's lots of jet fighters have been sold worldwide. So it really did become possible to create a scenario like Herman Kahn did, and that's essentially what I did in End of Days. And I have to tell you that I've gotten some amazing reviews on that. William Cohn, who was Clinton's defense secretary, said it was shockingly doable, and in fact he called End of Days tomorrow coming a day early. General Sid Shacknow, who was the general in charge of all U.S. Special Forces worldwide, said it's not at all far-fetched. It could really happen. Publishers Weekly said it's frighteningly possible. And it's something that's haunted me for a long, long time. And as I said, I put a lot of effort into it. There's a gigantic cast of characters, and it's something. I probably worked harder on it than anything I've ever done in my life.
Sounds a little like the premise of that Sum of All Fears. Was that Tom Clancy that wrote that?
Yeah, Clancy was talking about one, and it was a nuke that got stolen. It was an Israeli nuke that got stolen, and he took out Denver in it. It was single thing. I'd take out the whole world. I mean, this is really the end of days in my book. I even had my terrorists even nuke the Yellowstone caldera. Which, by the way, would just essentially obliterate most of the United States and southern Canada and that.
Right. You set off the Yellowstone super volcano, and that'd be about it. Right.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I would blanket, the United States and most of southern Canada would just blanket it with ash and embers and everything. The people or they don't know that 76,000 years ago, most of humanity was centered in eastern Africa and Asia and that, and the Lake Toba super volcano went off, and it killed 99.99% of Homo sapiens. And at that time, there were like a half a dozen different kinds of human beings, and the Lake Toba volcano basically killed all of them off, except for Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. And Neanderthals eventually went extinct. And so, in a real sense, the Homo sapiens was created by a super volcano 76,000 years ago. It killed off all the competition for Homo sapiens. There was only 3,000 breeding pairs left alive after Toba went off. By the way, my terrorists also nuked Lake Toba, and they also nuked the Campo Flegrei in southern Italy.
Wow. Well, if you look at, looking at today's world and political environment and all the, the underground groups involved, how likely, you look at Al Qaeda, do you think they have been actively pursuing, they talk about dirty bombs, or is it a step beyond that even?
Well, there's a couple of things that the availability of nuclear bomb fuel. Hiroshima type bomb fuel, Nagasaki type bomb fuel. That stuff's just been way too available for too long. And now, for instance, Russia's yard sale at the end of history, it's a little better secured now than it was, say, 10 years ago. But even given that, all you need is you give me one trusted insider, and I can steal anything. In fact, the bomb fuel in the United States is shockingly insecure. That we do the big nuclear weapons labs in Sandia in San Francisco and Los Alamos in New Mexico, that all around Oak Ridge, all of them, that they do something called mock intrusion tests, and they'll get people, sometimes ex-special forces, government employees, and they'll disguise them as maintenance workers. They'll even disguise them as terrorists. And they'll go see if these guys can sneak into a weapons lab and steal some nuclear bomb fuel. And 50% of the time, they walk out with it.
Wow.
There was a famous test at Los Alamos where some guys went in. They took a Home Depot one of those flat-bedded Home Depot garden carts, and they walked right in front of God and everybody. Walked right in, piled it high with nuclear bomb fuel. Walked right out of the front gate, completely unaccosted. Nobody stopped them or anything. Walked right out the front gate, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission attempted to disqualify the test because on the equipment list there wasn't a Home Depot garden cart. And Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico said that's crazy, and he lobbied and got and he said, "Come on, the terrorists won. They beat you guys," and he got the thing reinstated. But they also do a similar test for nuclear power plants. And they'll have guys who'll come in and they'll see if they can get into the control room. Because if you can get into the control room for 15 minutes, you can melt down a nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
In fact, as Fukushima in Japan taught us, you don't even have to go into the control room. Because the cooling pumps, are outside the control room. You just get to the cooling pumps and you cover them up with C4 and blow them up, and that'll also melt down a power plant.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go into and the 50% of the time the terrorists win, and that's in the United States of America. If we can't secure our own stuff, how do you expect Russia, Pakistan, India, nations that live by the back sheets, where corruption's a way of life? We can't even secure our own stuff.
Yeah.
Also, they have now. This is the American media hasn't been covering it, but there is a thing called the Nuclear Threat Initiative, NTI.org, which was Republican Senator from Indiana, Richard Lugar, and Sam Nunn, a former defense secretary, as well, financed by Ted Turner. And they have something called the Global Newswire, and they collect from all over the world. They collect all kinds of articles and stuff on essays on the problems of nuclear proliferation, nuclear terrorism, and they have just marvelous stuff. But one of the things they've uncovered is that there's some in Pakistan. These are units that are very highly trained, very well organized. They're Al Qaeda, but also Taliban, and they've been trained by Pakistan's SSG, which is their equivalent of SEAL Team 6. They're really like big commando organization, and they were trained in order. These Al Qaeda Taliban units were trained so they could go fight in Kashmir. Unfortunately, they went rogue, and they've blown up a number of Pakistan's nuclear facilities. They blew up their big army headquarters, which is incredibly well fortified. It's the single most fortified site in Pakistan. They blew up a big naval base in Karachi called El Merer. And then India is scared to death of them. They said they're not sure they can defend their nuclear facilities against them. And to assume that they'll never make it to the United States is fundamentally naive. It's like saying that 9/11 never happened.
Yeah.
This stuff, that these threats really do exist, and they are getting worse and worse and worse. And we tend, for a variety of reasons, to people. I've got, I'm a book publisher is my real job, and I work with a lot of military guys, very high-ranking military guys. And they tell me that the Pentagon's never done one single study on nuclear terrorism. Not one. None of the war colleges, none of the, that there simply aren't that aren't any that there aren't any studies done. That I starred in a 2-hour History Channel special on the end of the world. And one of the things that I talked about at some length was nuclear terrorism. They said they could never find anybody to talk about it. That people were just too frightened of the subject. And unfortunately, the terrorists aren't frightened of it. They're very much attracted to it.
Yeah.
And we ignore the subject at our peril.
Yeah, and I think it would be a lot easier to do damage at a power plant than it would be at a military facility. Because the power plants would be less protected.
Yeah, you melt down the Indian Point's on the edge of New York City. You melt down Indian Point, you'll irradiate 27,000 square miles. You'll irradiate, make uninhabitable an area the size of New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Maryland. There was HBO did a study on the security of Indian Point in 2004. They interviewed some of the security guards. A lot of people don't understand that the nuclear weapons labs and nuclear power plants are actually defended by rent-a-cops, by security guards, a lot of whom are rather elderly. And the HBO interviewed a number of these guys, and they did a study at Indian Point. 19% of the security guards at Indian Point could not rise from the prone position without assistance. They interviewed one of the guys, and this is on television. They interviewed him, and they said, and they're only prepared to do battle with 2 or 3 terrorists with small arms attacking Indian Point, or any of them, or Los Alamos. They're only prepared to fight 2 or 3 guys with small arms. And one of the interviewers asked one of the guards, said, suppose you got hit by a 9/11 size unit, 19 people, with platter charges, with rocket-propelled grenades, really well armed. They said, what kind of weaponry do you have to defend yourself and defend Indian Point? And the guy said, I got access to a 9mm pistol. And they said to him, well, what would you do with that, if you're swarmed by 19 heavily armed terrorists? And he said, I'd shoot my way out of here. I'd go home, and I'd evacuate my family and get the hell out of here. And we really don't. We're doing nothing to defend the nuclear power plants. We're doing Sandia, big nuclear weapons labs in San Francisco. Somebody got inside, and it happens all the time during these tests. Somebody, got inside Sandy and blew it up. You blow up half of San Francisco.
Wow.
And yet we do nothing to defend these installations.
And another thing about it too is it's not just blowing it up, but the half-life of the radioactive material is like 20,000 years, so it would be completely uninhabitable.
More like 200,000 or 300,000 years, depending on what you read. One of the funny things is that you had a big blow up. So you've got, let's say you got a lot of radioactive waste. What kind of signage are you going to have that's going to be readable 5,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, 100,000? Language has only been around for 5,000 years. What are you going to put up a skull and crossbones? Nobody's going to know what that means 5,000 years ago. We don't even know enough to warn people how dangerous it is, let alone to find a way to safely secure it. If you really wanted to make an argument that Homo sapiens doesn't really deserve to survive as a species, I'd just say nuclear power. Among other things, that nuclear, and this is a big thing in End of Days, my big End of the World book, that nuclear power reactors are nuclear bomb fuel factories. That there was a study done at Oak Ridge, done in 1977, where they demonstrated that if you get the equipment from an old dairy or an old winery, relatively unskilled terrorists in 6 months can build a nuclear bomb fuel reprocessor, and in 1 month they can reprocess enough nuclear power waste to build a Nagasaki bomb. That we chose back in 1953 to proliferate with Atoms for Peace. We chose to proliferate these nuclear bomb fuel factories to some of the most dangerous nations in the world. And if you really want the sheer stupidity of the way we decided to sell for a profit, to sell these nuclear bomb fuel factories to all the nations in the world, that really makes you look at something like that and do we really deserve to exist as a species?
It's crazy, for sure.
Yeah, it's completely nuts.
People should consider.
They're for nickels and dimes.
Yeah.
People should consider, it's not, at least I think, from what I understand, it's not so much making the bomb is so hard as it is making the triggering device for it. Is that right?
Well, the hardest thing is making the bomb fuel, which is why you probably want to steal it. But the thing is that if you're going to make a terrorist nuke, or Hiroshima style, or you can make a very crude terrorist nuke that will have power to be comparable to the Nagasaki or the Hiroshima nuke. If it's a suicide bomber, the suicide bomber becomes the trigger. The suicide bomber becomes the fusing mechanism. You're right. If you wanted to take a bomb and put it on top of a missile, that's very complicated. But if you've got a guy who's just going to go into a panel truck in front of the New York Stock Exchange and just set it off, he would probably want to assemble the bomb in the panel truck. The problem with setting off a nuclear weapon, Luis Alvarez, who invented the triggering systems for the Hiroshima bomb and the Nagasaki bomb, he also worked on hydrogen bombs. He pointed out in his memoir in the late 60s, Confessions of a Physicist, a nuclear physicist. He pointed out that the hardest thing is not to make the bombs go off. The hardest thing is to keep them from going off. And the big thing, if you had a crude terrorist nuke in your panel truck, you would probably want to assemble it on the spot and then set it off. Because if you assembled it, and the hardest thing is the things you get too close to each other, they're going to touch and they'll start to go critical. And so these things are, you know where we tested the Hiroshima bomb? It's so foolproof. It's so easy to set off. We didn't test it at White Sands. We didn't test it at Trinity. We tested it over Hiroshima.
They had a lot of confidence in that one, I guess, huh?
Yeah. I've never heard of an attempt to test a nuclear weapon where the nuclear weapon didn't go off. It's surprisingly easy to make these things go off.
It's terrible. The more I hear about humanity, the more I like my dog.
In End of Days, there's a kind of a debate going on about, and particularly at the end, that God and Jesus Christ have a debate over, over whether humanity deserves to live. It's actually kind of it goes on in the head of one of my characters, and she's fairly insane, but she has in her own head God and Jesus are debating whether or not humanity should be given a second chance. And and Lord knows I love people, and I've got a million friends, and I love Shakespeare and the great art and the architecture, the music and everything, Bach and Beethoven. And Lord knows 99% of humanity is really quite wonderful. But then, you turn around and you look at it, these horrible weapons we create, and we do nothing to control them, and all the crazy, violent, self-destructive stuff that humanity does. And the technology of destruction that we create, and with every year it gets more insane. You look at the last 100 years, humanity has inflicted more violence on itself than all the other centuries put together.
Yeah. They want to do it bigger and faster and better than before.
Yeah. There's just something in humanity that is really, it's like little kids that play with matches or something. There's something in humanity that it seems to be drawn to the flame, the Luciferian flame, which is something I go into in End of Days quite a bit.
Why can't everyone just get along?
That's right, you.
Be happy.
Yeah.
Well, kind of bring us into then, the situation between Iran and Israel. They're not friends, obviously, and kind of tie that in with the Book of Revelations.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by Revelation. There's a thing, and it's in chapter 14, verses 9 through 11, that an angel comes down, and the angel, does some things to prove the angel's an angel. And he says to humanity, and this is obviously speaking the truth, and the power of the Antichrist is the power of greed. That that you cannot make money unless you go through the Antichrist. He's involved. For you to make money, the Antichrist has to be involved in every transaction. So the power of the Antichrist over humanity is greed. And this angel comes down in chapter 14, and he says that you're going to stop dealing with the Antichrist. You're going to reject the Antichrist. And if you don't, you're going to spend all of eternity in lakes of fire and fire and brimstone. It's going to be pure hell. And that on the other hand, you can make money. So you have all eternity in fire and brimstone, or you can make money. And, it's either or, back or forth. And so the overwhelming, the vast, by the way, this guy's proving he's an angel. He's speaking the truth. This is irrefutable. And the vast, overwhelming majority of humanity says, eternity in lakes of fire, making money. Eternity, lakes of fire, making money. Oh, I think I'll go for the money. And there is that part of humanity, and I've often thought about when 1953, when Eisenhower gave the Atoms for Peace speech, that Molotov, who was the number 2 guy under Stalin, came up to John Foster Dulles after Eisenhower gave the speech and said, we've actually looked into this, and these nuclear power reactors you're going to sell to everybody, they're nuclear bomb-filled factories, and there's no way to get around it. And Dulles said, and there was a guy, Dulles's chief of staff was there, and he took notes, so we actually have notes of the record of the conversation. And Dulles said, we'll find a way to fix it. And the guy said, no, you're not. We've looked into this. You can't fix it. And he said, no, we'll find some technological fix for it. This is 1953. Well, we never did. And we have proliferated these nuclear bomb-filled factories throughout the whole world. Jeez. So we did it for money. Like something out of the Book of Revelation.
Unheard of. Now, Bob, before we're getting close to the end of the hour, and I'd like to give people where people can find all this information, where they can get your books, and maybe where they can touch bases with you.
Oh, it's in all the End of Days is in all the bookstores. And by the way, it's if you like books like Left Behind and The Stand by Stephen King, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. The book has gotten all-starred reviews, and Booklist said it's basically the best end of the world novel ever written. They said it's better than The Stand. That the Publishers Weekly said that End of Days it reads like they said it makes the Road by Cormac McCarthy looked like a quiet stroll through the park. And other people said it was better than Left Behind. So if you like that kind of book, it's I put a lot of time into it. The End of Days, you can find it. It's front of store at Barnes and Noble. It's at all the major bookstores.
And do you have a personal website, or is that just you?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. RobertGleasonBooks.com. And Gleason is like Jackie Gleason. It's Gleason. RobertGleasonBooks.com. But thank you. It's one of those subjects that is transcendently important, but no, everybody's too. The Pentagon won't even talk about it. They won't even do studies on it.
There's not
But
much
it's terribly. We ignore the subject at our peril.
It's hard to plan the unthinkable.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jeez. But it is out there. It is out there.
Well, I did it.
Yep,
And
you did.
I planned the unthinkable.
You did. Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate you taking time out. I know you're a busy man, and we definitely you enlightened us. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Take care. Yeah. Hey, bye-bye.
Man, the thing is, our subjects tonight were so intense. We almost need 2 hours for each one.
And diversified, I might add.
Well, of course.
I'm getting out of here. Damien.
Fine, then go.
I'm gone.
Go then.
I am. Go. I'm gone.
Go then.
I am.
Well, it sounds to me like it's time to go.
I guess.
Yeah.
But we will be here next week sharing our lives once again and having a great time with all of our friends out there. Can't wait. Can't wait. And until then,
Spook to you later.
Good evening, everyone.
and pleasant nightmares. Oyasumi Nasai. Night Watch is a production of Jackalope Media in association with Jackalope Radio, with your host Todd Sheets and co-hosts Hugh McClanahan and Chris Weisbach, featuring voice work from September Day. Also with Amanda H. and Audrey Q, associate producers.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that every child should sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world.
You can also listen to Night Watch on the following incredible radio stations: World Talk Radio, Livid Radio, Hawking Radio, Planet Tokyo, Sessions Radio, Power 3201, Z106 FM, Haunted Voices Radio, K94 Rocks, Glue 92, Anomaly Radio, Mystic Age Radio, 96.3 Shane FM, Flash FM, Nomad Radio Network, Yapster FM, My Retro Rock Radio, Double X Radio, 1611 AM, Australia, KBMA, Sports and Entertainment Radio, Robin Valley Community Radio, Radio Crackle, Planet Paranormal, The Black Vault Radio Network, Radio Free Bob, KCOR, WCRP AM, 1620, Rock and Talk Radio, The Point 99.1 FM, Extreme Indie Radio, Omnicron Radio, WPAZ 1370, Blast Podcast, KJO 97.3 FM, Indie 104 FM O Radio, WDSP 101.9 Fox FM, Ghost Village, SwitchPod, Pure Country, Headcase Radio, Slack and Bracken Radio, Future World, Red Finger Radio, Catnip Radio, Scuttlebutt, The Butt at radio.thebutt.net, BNRX Internet Radio for the Extreme, KCIA at kcia1.com, Extreme Radio Tampa, Ryukin Radio, X100, SRN1, the 1KX Network, KJAG Radio, Random Radio, Riff Raff Radio, Exile Radio, WOQ AM Radio, FCN Radio, Gray Point, Brand Name Radio, CKDU FM, Leaf Pile Radio, Rocktown Radio, Bizu Homegrown Radio, WWRW, the Worldwide Radio Web, The Dust at www.onthedust.com, Radio Vox, Atlantis 102, Land's Edge Radio, Mix 94.5 FM, 91.5 FM, Ghost Radio, Jet City Radio, Hits 99.9, Extreme Radio 1077, Ghost Radio X, The Beat, Shadows of the Night, East Hill Radio, Hot 97.7 FM, 91.5 FM BVIR, Bearcast Radio, Kudia Radio, World Talk Radio, Surge Radio Network, Radio End, Dragonflight Radio, Beefy Radio, K94 Rocks, Anomaly Radio, Power 3201, and Independent International Radio, Lips 106 FM, Dragonflight Designs Radio, Indie X Radio, The Free Constitution Network, WOQ AM 1690, The Mix 94.5, AM Stereo 930, Radio Enigma, Steel City Radio. If you're an affiliate and your name is not on this list, send me an email and I'll add it as soon as possible. Remember to check out all these great stations for their own days and showtimes for Night Watch. And don't forget, you can listen to Night Watch anytime you want to by going to the audio chamber at www.nightwatchradio.com and downloading your favorite episodes for your own personal paranormal pleasure. And as always, you can hear Night Watch live every Tuesday night right here at 9 p.m. Central on jackaloperadio.com.